Hello everyone, welcome to the spoiler talk for season 3 of Runaways, the final season. We made it, boys. Yes indeed. I'm excited. I actually am, because I remember some good stuff in this season. Well, one good thing, and I am really excited to get to it, but it's gonna take us a little bit before we get to the dagger. So the first episode starts off with Chase. He wakes up in the hostel, however it's being attacked and Gert is being put in a pod by Pride. Meanwhile, Janet also has a happy life because Victor is the happy housewife, which that one is immediately suspicious. And also, Nico and Carolina's wedding is happening. Turns out it's all but a simulation. And while they're stuck in a simulation, Nico also has a nightmare about a very attractive woman who she asks for help in order to get Carolina back. And basically, this very attractive woman tells her that, yeah, she's alive. I'm not gonna tell you where, but she's alive. So don't necessarily, you can kind of worry. But like, she's not dead. That's the important part. Like, she doesn't really give us anything outside of that. It's so funny. It's like, a location would have been nice. I've given you everything I can. What do you mean? You haven't given us anything at all. So Nico wakes up. She tells to the group that, hey, Carolina is alive. Where? Nobody knows. But she's alive. That's the important part. And then on the news, Pride is giving a speech. At least the 3 magistrate members of Pride. They're giving a speech. And then Stacy comes in and is like, hey, son, I know you're out there. Come home. And then we get the story from Zavin, where we learn the fact that the brother is the most dangerous magistrate out there. And since I already know who it is, I'm not gonna spoil it yet, because we'll learn that in 2 more episodes, if I remember correctly. But the gang now needs to prepare for a rescue mission. However, we don't know where they are, because of the fact that Hot Woman didn't really give us a location at all. So Nico and Alex are gonna go to the Victor's residence, I guess you could say, the Stein's residence. Meanwhile, Molly and Zavin are gonna search Gert's residence in order to see if maybe Gert is there, because we don't know where anyone is, but we do know that these are the people. Also, I was wrong. I thought that Tina was actually the magistrate's wife. No, she's the magistrate's daughter. It's actually Stacy who is the wife, which makes sense given how they both act, you know? I mean, the wife does not really seem like the one who would be like, ooh, ice cream, and the daughter doesn't seem to be the one who is all serious. I think those are switched, but yeah, turns out it was true. Also, Gert, Dale, and Lace are at an old cabin, and Gert's not happy at all, which means Lace is not happy, but Dale tries to calm them down, failing miserably. So then Janet figures out that she's stuck in a simulation, which, well, I mean, she was known to be the brains as well, you know. Victor isn't the only one who has brains, so does Janet. However, when she wants to escape, the door is locked. However, then a crack opens up to Chase's simulation, so yeah, there's a problem with the simulation going on, but we'll get more answers to that one later on. So Zavin and Molly arrive at Gert's house, and Gert is not home. Neither is Dale or Stacy, so that's a good part, that last one anyway. No one seems to be home. However, we do get a little bit of a bonding moment between the 2 women here, so that is nice, even though this is still very robotic. And I like how Zavin tries to do the whole Terminator thing, where it's like that smile. I actually like that scene. It was actually funny. So Nico and Alex are at Victor's house. However, the problem is they can't really get in, so we need a new plan. Also, the wife, Stacy that is, but the wife we're just gonna say wife, daughter, brother, and magistrate. That's what we're gonna, or Jonah. No, Jonah's probably simpler. But anyway, the wife goes inside of Carolina's pod in order to figure out who she really is, and then it's like, you mean my dad? It's like, oh, that's a hybrid. And she instantly hates the hybrid child. So, that's fun. Okay, your stepmom hates you. Fantastic. Also, after a while, Dale decides to free Gert and Old Lace and have them basically fight back against, you know, the aliens that are here. But first, we need some training to do because of the fact that there's a lot more Old Lace can do that she doesn't know about. Gert, basically, she skimmed the first page of the manual and then was like, all right, we're off. But there's still a couple more pages, so Dale's gonna get her through the pages, at least the second page. Let's just say that one. And that is the fact that Gert can actually steer Old Lace when she's running around and also see what she sees. Kind of like that. Okay, you know what? Maybe there's not gonna be a lot of Pokemon and Marvel crossover here, but let's just say there is Ash Greninja. It's kind of like Ash Greninja in that sense. However, Gert, obviously, for the first lesson, drives Lace straight into a tree, so that's fun. Also, Jeffrey and Catherine have a little bit of an issue in prison. They are not gonna get out, so Catherine decides to confess to the murder of Darius so that Jeff can get out scot-free. And he is not really happy about that. And I'm like, good. You know, I actually started to like Darius until he kind of betrayed. But to be honest, the betrayal was for a good reason. Okay, it's like he thought that Alex would be better off with his parents, which turned out not to be the case. And he kind of instantly regretted it after he learned that that might not have been the case. However, then he got shot and killed, obviously. So, yeah, he didn't really have a lot of time to regret it. So everyone regroups back at the hostel, and we now need a new plan. Also, Leslie is going into labor in this episode, but that is more for the ending. That's basically the cliffhanger, which is kind of weird and creepy as well. So Alex decides to make a whole new plan in order for this to work. And also, earlier on in the episode, Molly seems to be the only one who is against killing the magistrates, which also in turn will kill Victor, Stacy, and also Tina. So she doesn't want to do that. Like, if killing the magistrates would be the only thing, then sure. But killing the parents, no, that's not really what she wants to do. She's basically like, only killing if we need to kill. But the new plan gets set into motion. Once again, the team split up the same way that they did before. And Zavin pretends to be Gert, who pretends to be the brother that is still missing. Which maybe announcing that your long-lost relative was still out there was not such a good idea. Anyway, she calls the magistrates in order to be able to lure them away from the mansion, which works, you know, because they are very excited to pick up the brother. Meanwhile, Alex and Nico sneak in, and Alex goes into the pod, not like that, of Janet in order to ask her to help her figure out how to get out of here. And we learn, because of the fact that 3 people are part of this simulation, the simulation is being strained, and that's why everything is going haywire a bit. Outside of, you know, Carolina, because that is actually what the wife did, because she hates Carolina. So then Janet tells Alex, in order to get us out, you need to book. So Alex gets out. However, Nico went into Carolina's vision, which, you know, nice for Carolina to see Nico again. But then Alex comes in like the party pooper that he always is, and he's just like, okay, we need to get out of here because we need to free them, okay? So now that Carolina finally got Nico back after I don't know how long she was without Nico, Alex immediately pulls her away. However, the magistrates start to come home because of the fact that when the magistrates arrived at the location, they figured out, yeah, you're Zavin. You're not actually my child. And then we have a little bit of a chase sequence. Also, Molly tries to get through to Stacy, which initially doesn't work, but then it works. So that is a very nice moment. So this also confirms to Molly that they're still in there and they could potentially still be freed. We don't have to kill them. So that's good. And also, I like how Zavin is able to escape by turning into Tina and pretending to be the daughter. And that's nice. Very clever as well. Good job. But since the magistrates have come home, yeah, Alex and Nico need to hide. So that's gonna be a little bit of a problem, looking at the fact that Jonah is immediately like, something's wrong here. Something is very wrong here, but I don't know what. And then to end the episode, we have Leslie, who is at the hospital with the child, and it kind of looks like the child is ready to claw its way out of Leslie. So that is not going to be fun. So this episode starts off with Chase having given up on the whole simulation thing, playing along anyway. He's basically on a bed like, okay, now you're gonna come to me. Now he's gonna fall through the door. Now this is gonna happen. It's all so boring. However, then her mom breaks through again with a crack, and basically we get the revelation that if we die in the simulation, we die out there as well. At least our bodies will, which means we also die, or we're gonna be trapped in the simulation forever and die with it. Simple as that. It's just, no matter what, it's dead. Also, the daughter tells Jonah that mom knows about the hybrid and is not happy about it. So Jonah's like, okay, how about we just leave mom behind and we go with you, your brother, and Carolina, okay? Because apparently mom already called for an evac for 4. So we'll just take Carolina instead of mom. And I'm like, isn't it better if we just called the evac for everyone except for the brother? I mean, I guess the mom wouldn't go along with it. And if the brother is pure evil, which who could it be? Then he's gonna leave his mom behind, but she won't leave him behind, kind of that thing. So then Stacy arrives at Gert and Dale and is like, no, I'm really myself, okay? The alien is not taking hold of me. They don't really know what's going on. And she's like, look, okay, the aliens have this plan. You have to stop them. But before she can really get everything out because of the fact that they keep interrupting, sadly enough, the alien takes over once again. And then we get a fight that happens, which is kind of pathetic on Dale's part, but also understandable that he doesn't really stand a chance. Look, Dale's a nerd. He's not gonna be strong, okay? He doesn't go to the gym and work out. His power lies in his brain. Also, that is an alien, and as we have seen, these aliens, for some reason, give their host superhuman strength when they're in control. So, yeah, he never really stood a chance, but I did find it funny anyway. However, if the wrong people see this show, they're gonna call this thing woke because of the fact that men are once again treated as being weak, even though Chase isn't really shown as being weak. It just depends on the person. The one who is weak is Dale because he's a nerd, just like how Alex isn't really much of a fighter either. Meanwhile, Jonah has finally left, so Alex and Nico get out of the closet. Only 50% like that because Alex isn't gay, but Nico is. But she was already out of the closet. I guess she does it again for dramatic effect. Anyway, Book is gone, and also Alex cannot get back into the simulation, which means that they are basically on their own. So time to search the house. However, they're almost detected, so Nico once again puts up the invisible spell in order to create like a protection so that they can't be seen. And also, the plan with Jonah is the fact that the daughter is gonna head over to Tina's corporation in order to be able to, I don't know, do some travel stuff. It's too much for my tiny brain. Anyway, but once they're gone, Nico and Alex continue on. Alex finds the book and he opens the book and he's like, I can read this, kind of. And he explains the reason for it is because of the fact that it's kind of like, you know, nerd stuff. But I have a different explanation. But I'll tell you that much at the end of the next episode. I'll give you guys, I'll tell you guys why I think he was able to read the book. But he tries to read the book. Problem is, Nico cannot really hold up the spell. We once again see the hot one again, I think, actually. I know you hear her voice. I don't actually know if she shows up physically. But anyway, this caused Nico to also drop the staff and hide with Alex in another closet. She wants to once again come out for dramatic effect. However, this time, Jonah finds the staff and then he walks away. Also, Molly and Zavin have arrived here. However, Molly wants to smash her way through everything, kind of like the Hulk. Zavin tells her that that is not a good idea and that they should probably just find the weapons. They can't get into the vehicle until the daughter opens it up. Who doesn't know that they're there? So they go inside of the vehicle, hide, and the daughter drives away to her corporation in order to be able to do the whole travel stuff with Molly and Zavin in the back. So once she's gone, they try to get out but set off the alarm. However, then Zavin turns into Tina, gets the spare keys, doesn't know how to drive, so Molly then drives them back to the house. Also, Janet makes it into Chase's virtual reality, and then Carolina eventually joins them as well after she finally decides to give up on this dream in that sense. And now they are all in one simulation. Problem is, Chase starts choking because outside Jonah is removing the oxygen from Chase's tank in order to let Nico come out. However, then Carolina uses her powers on the simulation in order to be able to give Chase back the oxygen, so that is not really something that was planned. And then also the mom is like, let me see what I can do with the simulation. Use your energy in order to put me into the simulation in that sense. This is weird stuff. It's just like go with it kind of thing. But she does do that, and the mom explores the simulation. So Nico arrives. She wants the staff back, and Jonah and Nico have then basically a pulling match with who gets the staff until Jonah's like, who cares? I'll break the thing. So he does that. He breaks it, and then Nico once again uses her Asian powers of combat in order to be able to fight against Jonah because apparently she is such a good fighter, which, how though? Look, I know that they're rich, but at least you could have given us an explanation that she participated in like Taekwondo or something, karate or anything like that. Or she just watches a lot of Dragon Ball Z. That is also entirely a possibility, which actually would put a lot more respect on Nico because I'm also a fan of the Dragon Ball stuff. I am doing that every Sunday on this channel anyway. But while Nico is fighting against Jonah, Alex comes down with the book, opens it up, and he tries to use the book in order to get the guys out. But the problem is the gang cannot really escape because of the fact that the passwords keep changing. So he goes in there and eventually he is able to get it. And at this point also, Jonah has overpowered Nico and he's ready to take her down, but then Molly appears and punches him, and then they throw down the dices in order to be able to trap him in the red. And Alex is through. Everybody gets to escape except for the fact that Janet has become part of the algorithm. So yeah, she stays behind. Chase and Carolina get out. They're free. Everything is great. Time to head back home. Problem is, some of them are kind of against Chase being here. However, Molly then has this big speech in order to defend it, but that doesn't really work. He gets one night to stay with the squad, and after that he probably has to leave. And everybody wants to go to their room. Problem is, it doesn't really work because of the fact that Zavin is like, Nico can't go with Carolina because she might be evil, the evil brother. And it's like, woman, come on, you're just saying that because you're jealous. Like, well, yeah, I am, but also it could be true. But Nico is then like, yeah, it could also be true because I have been losing time and the dark power inside of me, which, by the way, it's not you. I will say that right now. It is not you. It is someone else of the Runaways. But then with Nico thinking that she is actually the brother, we have the ending of the episode, and I very much enjoyed this episode, mainly with the whole Stacy and Dale stuff. I like those characters. They are my favorite of the parents. However, I would have liked to know what happened with Leslie and the baby, looking at the fact that in the last episode, it looked like it was trying to claw its way out, and now we don't get any of it, so maybe we'll go back to Leslie in the next episode. So, let's figure out who the Holy Son is after all, because by the end of this episode, we'll figure out who he is. But first, we gotta go back a couple of years to Amy's funeral, and we get to actually see Amy's funeral, which was nice. Don't really get why we got to see it, but we got to see it nonetheless. However, during Amy's funeral, Catherine and Jeffrey got to talking, and Catherine is like, I know this was Jonah, even though she doesn't have any proof, and she wanted to leave Pride, but Jeffrey convinced her not to. Meanwhile, Catherine in present day is in prison. Jeffrey goes to visit her, and she's like, I need to talk to Alex because I have to tell him something important. And so she gives Jeffrey a code in order to be able to convince Alex to talk to his mom. Also, Nico is not happy at all about the fact that Zavin wants Carolina. Understandable. However, we may have a plan in order to find out which one of the runaways is the son. And it's a very simple and easy to follow plan. The plan is the goggles, because back in season 1, I think, when Chase used the goggles, he saw Jonah actually glowing, and I think Alex did that in this season as well. He saw that through the goggles as well. So, they're the perfect option. So time to search for the goggles, and they're gone. It's just like South Park. So then an alien paranoia kind of happens between the gang, as always. Also, the delivery boy from the last episode, I didn't talk about him because I didn't think he would become important, but he does become food for Jonah. Jonah uses him as food in order to be able to heal his body, so that's nice. For Jonah, not for the delivery boy. And also, Nico wants to get rid of the staff. And Zavin sleeps with Molly, not like that. So, what Nico does is she wants to burn the staff. However, then the mystery hot chick comes to her again in her vision or dream or whatever you want to call it, and is like, don't, please, don't. I've given you so much. And I'm like, what have you given her? Let's be honest here. I mean, basically, that, I guess, is the manifestation of Nico's darkness inside of her, is like the hot one. But, you haven't really done a lot of good things for Nico. I mean, you told her Carolina's alive, but you didn't really give a location or anything, so sorry if I don't trust you. But then Nico burns the staff anyway, and you see it basically screaming out, which, okay, sure, this is gonna bite Nico later on in the next episode, probably, because that hot one actually becomes more important for the second half of the season. Well, I wouldn't really say second half, because after the next episode, she becomes important. Also, Leslie went to the park where there's a Ferris wheel. Watch out for gang fights, because that is how a Punisher was made. Anyway, and she meets with her mother in order to ask for help with protection for the child. However, instead, Grandma gives her a book, so that's kind of useless. Also, Mom comes back. That is nice. Finally, she's back again, and we learned that basically that ship was stuck inside of the Earth for about 11,000 years, which is like, really? Wow, okay. That is a long time ago. So then Leslie returns to the hostel, and she has found the broken goggles outside. So that plan doesn't really work, but don't worry, we got a backup plan, and that is a very simple one, and that is basically the tech that Robert made in order to restrain the inhibitors. Anyway, I finally learned that they're called inhibitors, which maybe I should have figured that one out sooner, but my IQ is actually at like below average, so that's my excuse why I forgot about them. But the inhibitors, so we need to find some inhibitors. So Jeffrey goes over to Tamar in order to ask for Alex's number, which causes a little bit of trouble, but eventually he gets the phone, and he calls his son and tells him the code, which immediately makes Alex, okay, I can't go on the job, I have to visit my mom. So he heads off to visit his mom, where we also get the reveal that that code is actually the IP address that Alex has been using for a bunch of nefarious stuff, as in hacking the FBI and all that stuff, so he could get into a lot of trouble. However, she basically just wants to say sorry in that sense, and she wants to atone for her sins so that the family can be put back together, but Alex tells her to die, basically. He doesn't accept her apology, and he leaves. So at Nico's place, they find the inhibitors, they take it with him. However, there's a picture at the house that Nico sees that has that hot chick on it. So when she wants to go downstairs, she sees her dad, and they talk, and apparently that was actually a friend of her mother others before she met her dad. So this makes the mystery even more appealing. But the problem is the fact that when Nico leaves, it turns out that was actually maybe not her dad at all. And it was actually the hot one from the dreams, visions, whatever place they were in. And also her dad has some medical problems. And I don't actually think he dies, but he is having some medical problems, which is also caused by the hot one. So my guess is the hot one wants to kill off the dad so that there's no proof of this conversation ever happening, potentially. So then the daughter arrives at Tina's company, goes upstairs, tells everyone to find her a snack, and the one who brings back the best snack gets $1 million, which causes everyone to leave. And afterwards, she tries to test out the teleportation device. However, it doesn't necessarily work like it should. Instead of teleporting, it crushes you to death. So, little error, small error. So she goes back to the family and is like, yeah, the teleporter doesn't work yet, but we're close. Meanwhile, Catherine gets killed in prison because of reasons. I guess it's because of the fact that, you know, Catherine, she wasn't really the nicest lawyer in that sense. So, yeah, she's gonna make enemies in there. And now she's dead, sadly enough. However, Alex returns back to the hostel in order to take his mind off his conversation with his mom. However, at that moment, he also gets a call from his dad and is like, hey, your mom's dead, which causes Alex an extreme amount of grief. Meanwhile, in the park, because they now have the devices, the inhibitors able to detect, everyone takes the inhibitors in their hands, everyone is safe, and because of the grief, now the son has taken over Alex. Yes, the son was trapped inside of Alex this entire time. However, Alex could not be taken over because of the fact he's such strong willpower. But because of the grief, now the son has taken over Alex. He goes over to Leslie and is like, we have to leave. And then to end the episode, basically the squad comes home, search for Alex and Leslie, can't find them. And then they check Chase's hidden cameras that he had, and it is officially revealed that Alex is actually the bad guy. Now, I don't know how much the son actually was able to do, because Alex never really lost any time, unlike all the other characters. So, I don't know, like, who smashed... he probably did smash the goggles, so maybe he was only able to take over Alex when Alex was asleep. That is my guess. We'll have to wait for the next episode to hopefully get some answers. Alright, here we are, everyone. The finale, or what should have been the finale of Season 2, because this ends the Magistrate storyline and sets us up for the next storyline, which should have been the next season. Look, man, like I said, I've already talked enough about the fact this, in my opinion, has been very mishandled. So, the son makes a deal with his dad, Jonah, in order to stay behind, because that's what he wants, and Jonah agrees to the deal. So then he goes off in order to buy some food, and while he's doing that, he's like, oh, what are those things? And then the dude tells him, and it's like, okay, I would like a dozen of those things. And while the dude's packing it, it's like, all right, I'm gonna kill you. It's like, but why? Why are you killing this random seller? That makes no sense. Absolutely no sense. However, when he gets back to the car, there's a little bit of an issue. Leslie's water broke. Also, the gang will spend the next bit of the episode trying to find out what the son was planning. Because if he did take over Alex likes his plans, so maybe the son left a plan behind as well. So they go to search around. Also, Morgan, who was the woman that basically you could say possesses Nico, she wants to help. And also says that, hey, the staff is still inside of you. You did not kill it. But then disappears. So initially, the son takes Leslie to the hospital, but then it's like, yeah, that's not gonna work out after Leslie explains what's gonna happen. Basically, you know, she needs to stay there for observation, which is not a good thing because he needs to make that deal now. So then he goes over to Tamar in order to ask her for help. She initially doesn't want to do it, but then later on accepts it. However, also Tamar sees on the TV that Catherine is dead, and apparently maybe in the previously on segment, it did kind of seem like maybe Tamar had something to do with Catherine being dead. However, once Tamar and Leslie are alone, Leslie is like, give this message to my daughter, please. Alex is not Alex. So it's like, oh, so she knows. Probably because the fact that he wouldn't let her go into the hospital. That probably gave it away. Also, Chase decides to use the tech from the inhibitors in order to figure out a way in order to turn that into weapons. And Gert initially badmouths him about it, but then she joins in. And Gert has found a bunch of weapons, so now they're gonna coat the weapons in that inhibitor tech in order to kill the Magistrate family. Also, apparently that is not actually what their race is called. Let's see if I can... Here we go. Gibborim. Apparently the race is called Gibborim. So, the Magistrate is just the name of the Jonah guy, and then the other one is basically just his family, but they are called... Who comes up with these stupid names? Ah, well, whatever. So, hey, they head over to Tamar's place, and also Tamar has taken the baby somewhere else, which gives the Sun enough information to be like, oh, they know. Oh, no, they know. This is maybe potentially a problem. So then the Runaways arrive when Tamar is being choked, and then the Sun runs away because that's the best choice he has. So while Nico and Carolina chase after the Sun, Leslie gives birth, so that's nice, to a beautiful baby gal. However, the Sun is able to escape, sadly enough, because of the fact that he basically traumatizes Nico, because like, what if I just take over your body and then use that gun that you got there in order to shoot Carolina in the head? That would be some sweet stuff. I would enjoy that very much, which kind of, you know, that is enough for her to be like, okay, leave. Because also we don't know if shooting him will actually kill the Sun or just Alex, because of the fact that after Nico stabbed Jonah, he still was able to put himself into Victor. So who knows? Maybe after she shoots Alex, the magistrate's son is going to put himself into Nico, not like that, and then kill Carolina. So she's just a bit paralyzed because of that. So then everyone is here at the beautiful baby being born, and then the gang learn about the gateway because of the fact that the book is rumbling. So it opens up. Also, Tamar learns about aliens. Have fun with that one, which yeah, that's a bit weird within the MCU, because back in the day, it's about maybe like 6 years ago, less than, but still, let's say 5.5 years ago, we had Avengers, technically, canonically. So about that one, you're supposed to know that aliens are real, but whatever. You know what, maybe they thought that that was all like CGI or something like that. There are probably people who don't believe that aliens exist after the Avengers. I do feel like that happened until the snap happens. I feel like that is kind of like what cements it into place, where it's like, okay, yeah, half the universe disappeared, but they need to stop the gateway. And also, while the Runaways head off in order to prepare the weapons, Zavin stays behind. So then Leslie is like, oh, grab the book in my bag and read the marked page, and she does that. Zavin opens it up, reads it, and is like, oh, there's more to the prophecy apparently, but it's the same prophecy that she said. There were Zavin and also Carolina need to form a union in order for peace to happen. Problem is, it's not that way. It's actually this new child, and don't worry, we're not gonna go into the creepy Twilight stuff. I can't believe that they were actually able to get away with such sick stuff. I can't believe it. Where it's like, okay, yeah, a new baby is born, and instantly an adult man is like, that is going to be my future wife. What? That thing is just born. I mean, Quagmire made a joke about it, but it's Family Guy. That kind of humor exists in Family Guy, but like in Twilight, they were like serious about it. Newborn baby. Can't believe she's already 18. What? So weird. But anyway, the special prophecy that was spoken of was actually about the newborn child, and instead of Zavin being in love with said newborn child, instead it was going to be in a way a parental love. So basically Zavin will take this newborn back to the homeworld, and yeah, peace for all of homeworld, I guess. So the Runaways get back home, they weapon up, they also have some romance, which I don't care about. However, then they get the message, the child got stolen because the Sun attacked again. So then the Sun takes the child back home, goes into the building, goes to the family, tells the mom about it, and the mom is like, I don't want you to stay behind, but he's not welcomed on the planet anymore after what he did, so he needs to stay behind. So eventually she agrees, but he still needs to help with the startup. So the thing gets started up. We have some time left before the portal opens up so that they can go back home. However, that's when the Runaways arrive. So then everybody splits up in order to be able to fight, I guess, 1-on-1 or 2v1, depending, of course, on if you're Stacy or not. Because we have the battles. We have Chase versus Jonah, or Victor, I guess. We have Nico versus her own mother. We have Gert and Molly versus their own mother. And then we have Carolina, who stays behind in order to protect the portal so that it doesn't get destroyed and nuke the whole place. But also in case, you know, we get some visitors from the other side. We don't want that either. So we get some cool fighting stuff that looks cool for like TV budget stuff. It's a fine fight. You know, I mean, I do like the fact that Tina is like, I'm just cheating right now and just blast Nico away after doing a little sword fight with her. I did like that moment. However, eventually Zavin arrives as well and is able to steal the baby away from the brother, because she pretends to be the magistrate. So she takes the baby to Carolina and is like, I need to leave now. The whole squad is here as well, but I need to leave now. So she goes through the portal with the baby, zaps away, goodbye. Then the family arrives, and now they just start blasting. However, Carolina tries to hold them off, but she can't really do much of anything because it's 4-on-1. She does put up a good fight, which I'm like, how though? I thought these were supposed to be super powerful beings. But anyway, she eventually does get kind of almost beaten. So then Nico has to make make a choice, and she makes the choice. He resummons the staff and uses a spell in order to send everyone away, maybe killing the magistrates. Unknown about that one, but she does send them away. But she says, like, I didn't kill them, it's just I send them away or something like that. So that is going to be the rest of this season's plotline. And then to end the episode off, we have the fact that Morgan Freewoman brings Robert back from his coma, and she has plans for him. So the Runaways wake up back at the hostel. They have no idea how they got home, and also there are a bunch of strangers in the hostel. So yeah, something's off. So they go downstairs, see that this guy Quentin is going to give shows, so they go over there, and he basically tells them that others have been here too, and then he racially profiles every last one of them somehow, because he is from the past. He was the original owner of this place, and also that they shouldn't leave the hostel because it's the only place where they are able to be protected. If they leave, they'll be able to be put in their own memories, or I guess you could say nightmares. So they leave, and now they're trapped in nightmares. So Nico is with her grandma, and Chase sees someone hitting someone in a car and thinks it's its dad. Molly's with her parents, Caroline is with Destiny, and Gert's in a creepy basement. So we got some problems ahead of us. But Gert is actually in the nightmare of Stacy, and that's actually a flashback from basically back in the day. And there's an old lace prototype car, if you will prefer, that is down there as well. Also, Molly's parents think that she's 4, so that's a bit of a shame. Carolina is not just with Destiny, but also with a bunch of kids that were killed by their parents. And also, Chase did not actually see his dad hitting his mom. What he saw was actually his grandpa hitting his dad. So Chase lures the grandpa away, which works. However, then they can't really escape in the car, so they get out, and Chase beats up his grandpa and almost kills him until his dad stops him and is like, this cycle of violence needs to end. No more abuse. You are the one. You are the chosen one to end it. Also, Nico tells her grandma that the staff was inside of her, and then they're ready to cut her open until she gets saved by what looks to be Amy, who then takes her to Tina's nightmare, which was actually the death of Amy, at which point then Nico grabs the staff and then stabs Amy to show her mom that it's not real and that they are trapped in what is later gonna be known as something familiar. The Dark Dimension, boys. If you have been keeping up with the MCU, you know what the Dark Dimension is, and I do not need to tell you what happens at the end of next episode, but God, I will at the end of next, once we get to that portion of the spoiler talk, obviously. Also, Molly, sadly enough, learns that her parents were not forced into Pride, but that just like with all the other parents, they were Pride. And apparently then in a flashback that we seen right now, apparently Molly's parents were the ones who basically kind of like chose the kids in that sense for the sacrifice, because they're like, ooh, this one looks great, bring her to Leslie. And it's like, oh no, yep, there you go, sacrifices. Also, Gert learns that back in the day, Stacy actually mind wiped her, and that is why she's an insane lefty, because no one in their right mind would ever want to be a lefty. Actually, it's the anxiety, but still, I thought the joke would work because, you know, who in their right mind would want to become an insane lefty? Come on, dude, nobody. Also, the kids tie up Carolina for the monster, and it turns out to be Nico's darkness, and that is why Carolina's here, because she's trapped in her own nightmare, which is actually Nico's darkness. So she tricks Nico's darkness in order to allow her to escape. She then runs away, sees a portal, and goes through it. Chase apparently just happens to find Gert somehow and takes Gert and Stacy with them after Gert told her mom, I'm brave too. And then her mom was like, okay, fine, feed the dinosaur. It's like, okay, I'm gonna feed the dinosaur. But however, she got attacked by old Lace. That's a little bit of a shame, but I think Stacy is now in a bit of a shocking moment. So once the gang fully reunites where Molly is sitting, Molly seems to have forgotten who Stacy was, and that was one of the side effects of being too long in this place. You will forget things. Also, Nico forgot who Alex was. So they eventually arrive back at the hostel, and it's like, we need to get out of here. But we can't really get out of here. However, then Amy appears, who apparently, the one who looks like Amy, actually works with Morgan Le Fay. So we get the full name revealed right there, and then Tina is like, okay, I have an idea. I'm gonna cut my hand, and your hand, Nico, and then you're gonna use the staff, and I'm gonna use a spell. And then Tina says a bunch more words, and Nico's like, you can say more words when making spells. Also, they leave Alex behind, but they open up a portal. They go through the portal. However, they arrive back at the hostel, but there's a little bit of an issue. There's a bunch of dust and spider webs, and everything looks like the old days again. So then Chase has an idea, and he goes to the computer, and he sees something which is very shocking, and that is that the PC has not been backed up for at least 6 months, and that means, yes, they have been gone gone for 6 months. Also, Abel has Alex, but that is basically the cliffhanger. But here we go, boys. Now, the thing is that now, technically, we are in a way supposed to be taking place in August. So my headcanon is they were gone for 3, because I don't think the extra 3 months really change anything. But that's my headcanon. They were gone for 3 months and now it's May. That is my personal headcanon, by the way. I know some people may not like that, but that is my personal headcanon in order to make sense out of this. I already have to figure out how Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. works, which I kind of do. I have an explanation for that one, but I need to see Season 5 in its fully in order to be able to see if I can actually make the explanation work. As my own headcanon. I understand this is the headcanon. Also, I actually looked up on the MCU wiki, because they also have a big timeline. Apparently, they changed the original stuff on it, because back when this season came out, and also after Infinity War and after Endgame and after all the stuff that had happened, they still had it up with the fact that this takes place, well, at least right now we are in August. However, I recently looked into it because I also used the MCU wiki in order to be able to make more detailed notes for the video, and it turns out that apparently they changed some stuff, and they actually pushed everything backwards. So instead of us now being in August of 2018, we are actually supposed to be in May of 2018. So I don't really care about that stuff. I am actually using from now on the timeline that the internet has over the decades, full MCU fans have collectively decided where everything takes place. Or if you want to have a full detailed video, there is a guy who goes by the name of Geek Critique, and he has an MCU timeline thing. Version 7 is actually the newest one, and that one actually shows where everything takes place. But I'm not gonna change anything. We are still in 2018. However, like I said, headcanon wise, we're in May, just before Infinity War technically happens, which means that yes, Punisher Season 2, Jessica Jones Season 3, Ant-Man and the Wasp, and Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Season 5 have all, well, maybe not Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Season 5. Maybe this is happening concurrently with that one. But in a sense, that's basically all that has happened. By the way, those are the next couple of things that I have to look at before we are at the end of the Infinity Saga. But I like the headcanon certain things. But yeah, basically in continuity, in a way, it's been 6 months. Even though the reason that I also try to push it back is because of to 3 months is because of the fact that, yeah, they don't mention the snap at all. So, little bit of a thing. Anyway, that is my explanation. And let's get into the next episode then, because I cannot wait for the ending of that one. Alright, so a little bit of a course correction. I thought this was actually, for some stupid reason, episode 7. This is not episode 7, so the answer to the last episode, yeah, that is actually the next episode. Sorry about that one. We do not have a dagger at the end of this episode, sadly enough. That is gonna be at the end of the next episode. So let's see what's been going on in the world in these past couple of months. Turns out Morgan made a phone. An evil phone. Yes, indeed. It is basically just like real life. Phones are evil and they, everyone is on their phone. Well, technically, I mean, I guess you could say more the apps are evil than the phone itself, because everyone's just always on TikTok, swiping. So it makes more sense if like that's evil. Also, Nico's been trying to go back into the dark dimension. However, she can't. The only thing she can bring back is bird carcasses. Every time she uses the spell, it becomes bird carcasses. So that's a little bit of a shame. Also, Chase is like, maybe we shouldn't go back, but we have to. We gotta save Alex. Come on, man. So the Runaways go out to eat, and they each get a phone from Wizard. And yeah, those are evil phones. Also, Gert falls for the Wizard's phone giver guy, and that is going to become a little bit of a plot point only for this episode. Don't worry about the rest of it. He will become more important later on, which is the only reason I'm actually mentioning him. However, the dude bumps into someone else and breaks the phone. It's like, how dare you? And instantly just grabs him, puts him into the table. It's like, oh, okay. Yeah, these phones are evil. These phones are evil. He was about to kill someone because of a broken phone. Also, Dale apparently lives off the grid into the wilderness. At least that is what he says. Also, the church is bigger than ever. Apparently, after, you know, Carolina's whole light show that she did, the church apparently just got more and more members from everywhere. And Robert, sadly enough, moved out when Tina came home. And also, Tina doesn't like Morgan, so that's fun. I understand why. I mean, technically, you could say that Tina is evil for, like, killing 17 kids or 15. I forgot what number it really was, because I thought it was 15, but then for some reason it became 17, so I have no idea. However, if she's like, Morgan is no good, that must mean Morgan is indeed no good. But Nico doesn't really care, because Nico wants to get Alex back, and also Morgan offered her to train, so she doesn't really care. Also, Morgan is Robert's new lover, apparently, so that's fun. And also, she escaped because of the fact that Nico used the spell. That is why she was able to escape. So when everyone got got sent to the dark dimension, Morgan was able to walk free. And also, she is a part of Wizard. Oh, what a surprise. So Chase and Gert are walking. However, he tries to save her life. However, it breaks her phone, sadly enough. So she gets angry and he's like, I'll fix it, I'll fix it. So he opens up the phone when they're back at the hostel and he pulls out a feather and the phone turns to ash, which I don't think is normal. I mean, I don't really want to open up my phone, but I could open up my phone, but I don't think a feather is supposed to be in that bad boy. Also, we have a really funny scene with Victor because Victor, with some annoyance, has agreed to go with Stacy to an abductive anonymous meeting. And everyone is talking about how they got anally probed by aliens. And then when Victor has to say his story, he tells the story of everything that had happened over the course of Runaways. And then everyone is like, hey, you should leave because you're mocking us. And it's like, well, what you're saying actually did not happen, okay? And what he's saying actually did happen. But I don't know, I thought that was a really funny scene. I loved it very much. And also, Victor invites Stacy to the lab later on. So that's nice of him. There's not going to be a romantic option here. Don't worry about that one. Also, we get the reveal that Dale apparently is living at the church in a tent and he hasn't taken a bath and everyone doesn't like him. So Molly meets up with him and Dale kind of lets it slide that Leslie has a bit of a secret and he will not tell us what that secret is, but we don't really have that many episodes left to go. I think we got about 4 episodes left, so we have to find out that secret immediately. That is the problem, in my opinion, with this kind of season, where it's like, okay, so we have about 6 episodes for basically season 3 storyline, while we've had like way too many episodes for the other storyline. Like if this was better paced, I would have liked it a lot more. But Nico grabs the feather and she uses magic on it and it turns into a bunch of things, but eventually shows like a portal to Alex. I mean, it's not really a portal that you can go through, more see-through. And Alex is like, please help me. But that gets stopped immediately because it's dark magic. Also, Jeffrey and Tamara are now together. That is fun. Okay, look, this is kind of what I meant where I said 3 or 6 months, doesn't matter. Your wife died and you're immediately with someone new whose husband your wife killed, which actually that is kind of ironic. But they're kind of together now. So that's also gonna make that whole relationship between Livy and Alex really weird, actually. And apparently they're both working for Wizard, aka Morgan, so that is not really a good thing. And she plans to build a building here in the neighborhood, I guess you could say. And Jeffrey's like, that's fantastic, that'll help a lot of people get jobs. Like, yeah, but she's evil though. I don't know if that's really all that great. However, the Runaways are gonna infiltrate a Wizard party, except Molly because she's not here, and Alex because he's trapped. Also, Janet returns and she's an AI now, which is why it was so difficult for me to find an image of Janet, because on the MCU wiki, the only image of Janet is the AI image, so I couldn't use that one for spoiler reason. But yeah, Janet is AI now, so that's fun. That's what happened after she merged with the algorithm. But the reason that there is a party for Wizard is because of the fact that Morgan becomes the head of Wizard. And also back at the hostel, Molly picks up the phone, and that's more important for the end of the episode. Tina is also not happy that she's been kicked out of Wizard, and she's like, I will use magic on you, but apparently there are a bunch of witches here for Morgan, so yeah, that's not really such a good idea. However, then she's like, well, I can still do this, and slaps her in the face, and I just thought that was really funny. However, then she gets kicked out. Also, Gert asks eventually, after a long time, Max about the phones, and he doesn't really know about the whole magic stuff attached to it. So when Gert leaves, a witch turns around, talks to Max, and is like, yeah, you're not supposed to know any of that, so then knocks him out or removes the protection spell, because the sellers are the only ones protected from the violence from the phones. But I find it weird that she instantly starts talking about the violence of the phones. She could have just said, nah, it's nothing, it's not real. But no, she instantly is just like, yeah, okay, yeah, our phones make people violent, however, not the sellers, because otherwise we can't sell the phones. But anyway, she removes his memories, and that's the end of him, but that's why I mentioned him, otherwise I would not have mentioned him. So Carolina sees a bunch of evil witches together, and then has an interaction with Morgan. Afterwards, she goes over to Nico and is like, look, Nico, Morgan is not good at all, and also, my nightmare was your dark side, and I don't want you to become your dark side, okay? I want you to stay good. And then Nico goes off on her, and then she goes with Morgan, and then she's ready for the ceremony, so she gets tied up. Could be a fantasy of hers. And then afterwards, Morgan just casually opens the Darkhold. Now, this is not the same Darkhold from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. I know it looks the same. I mean, it's Marvel TV. They can reuse sets at any time that they want. The thing is that in Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, if I remember correctly, it was actually revealed that there are multiple Darkholds out there. So this is just another one of the Darkholds. It's kind of like the Apples of Eden in Assassin's Creed, where there are multiple of those. There's not just one. Like the Apple of Eden that Connor has, it was not found by Altair back in the Assassin's Creed 1. That didn't happen. So there are multiple Darkholds, and then she's like, I will release you from what holds your magic back and your dark side back. You are now released. Yay. And then the rest of the Runaways return home, except for Nico, and they find out that Molly is under the spell of the phone. So that isn't really good. It's looking at the fact that she's our powerhouse character. Now that is what I call an entrance. But before that, Molly attacks the gang because of the fact that she doesn't want to get rid of the phone. However, Carolina is eventually able to break it, which also breaks the hold on Molly. So she's free. Great, we got our powerhouse back. Nico also wakes up with a bunch of women. I am so jealous. And apparently Robert had Tina committed to like a psychic ward, but instead actually she is in a place under the control of Morgan so that she cannot use her spells at all. So who's ready for a rescue mission? Eventually. Also, Morgan wants Nico next to her, and she's really interested in the staff. So Nico comes home, argument obviously happens, and then Nico reveals that she wants to play Morgan so she can rescue Alex. That is why she's going along with Morgan's stuff. However, the rest of the Runaways have a plan. They're gonna make a video in order to confirm to the people that the phones are evil. However, Gert basically kills the PC, so we immediately get maybe Alex had a superpower as well. Yeah, he did. So Nico goes in order to rescue Tina, and she's able to talk her way inside and also rescue her mom. So that went without a hitch. Only one guard apparently. This is a look, Tina is a very powerful witch. You would have guards in place, okay? It's like, okay, there's one receptionist who lets Nico see Tina and then leaves Nico alone with Tina. But like, once they knock out the receptionist, they're just able to escape. No extra guards? Really? Okay, Morgan's an idiot. So the Runaways eventually are able to make the video. However, Morgan uses her magic in order to, number one, prevent the video from being uploaded, and two, prevent them from recording another. So that kind of blows. And she wants the Runaways dead. Understandable. I mean, the Runaways are kind of trying to stop her. Also, Jeffrey comes in, and him and Morgan have a little bit of a talk, and then she's like, I'll give you your son Alex if you wear this. And he instantly becomes one of her puppets, obviously. So then we come to the discussion, who is going to search Morgan's office and who is going to stay on lookout. And Tina decides that it is going to be her, even though initially Nico wanted to go, but it's too dangerous, so she goes. But before that, she meets Robert, breaks his spell, kisses him, and then goes inside with Robert. However, then Nico texts her mom about the fact like Morgan's coming. So then Tina escapes, but Robert stays behind because of the fact that, of course, she won't know anything about the fact that Robert is now not hers anymore. She won't notice, okay? But he's apparently a terrible actor because once her mom returns to Nico, instantly Nico is like, no, I need to stop her. So she tries to distract Morgan, but that doesn't work. But it did give the dad enough time to hide, so he's hiding. Also, the place that they were able to make the video was actually at the church, which is nice, even though technically I thought all tech were supposed to be gone. Anyway, Molly also has some issues with Leslie, and Leslie confronts her about it, and then it's like, oh yeah, I killed your parents, sorry about that one. I understand if you want to kill me now, but trust me, it's not gonna be good. And she's like, okay, I'm not gonna kill you because of the fact that that would put a black stain on my soul, and I'm not gonna do that. But I'll hate you for the rest of my life. It's like, understandable. Also, the video has not been fully deleted because Janet was able to save a copy of it, and also knows about the phone violence and tells that to Victor and Stacy, who then decide to head over to Wizard in order to put a stop to the production of the phones, and they tell that to Jeff. However, Jeff then lures them in and locks them up because of the fact that he is under the spell, obviously, of Morgan. What a surprise. Also, while in the office, Nico asks to see Alex, and Morgan actually shows her Alex. However, Alex apparently has been all this time being beaten by AWOL, so we get to see that. So Nico immediately has a little bit more desperation inside of her. So then they leave the office in order to, I actually don't remember where they had to go, but this allows Robert to go back inside. He finds the book behind the shelf case, which opens up with a book about herself, which, yeah, okay, of course it did. And he then opens up the Darkhold and he reads the pages, which is very dangerous to do. However, then he focuses up his glasses. However, at that point, Morgan notices something is wrong. She goes back to the office. She finds Robert there. Nico's like, oh no, wait, Dad! And then runs back as well, but she's too late. So then Morgan takes the Darkhold back, takes the necklace back and kills him. Or at least takes the life that she gave him away from him. And then she leaves. However, Robert says, here are my glasses, take them. And also tells Tina to protect Nico, obviously. And then dies. R.I.P. the boy. So Nico is obviously very sad about this as she heads back to the hostel. Meanwhile, throughout this episode, Molly has fallen for a boy called Bodhi. And she gets alone with him. She shows him her strength. However, turns out Bodhi is working for the witches. So then the witches arrive, and also the squad is searching for Molly in order to get her back. Dale is here as well. However, then the witches take all of them and lock them up in the same place as Victor and Stacy. So now they're all together. Yay! However, also Carolina can't use her powers because of the fact that I guess she's being affected by the same stuff from the dark dimension. So that's a bit sad. But Nico is now alone in the mansion, and then she is like, R.I.P. Dad. However, when she puts down the glasses, it projects and is like, oh my god, he took pictures with the glasses or video with the glasses. And Nico reads what the glasses say, and then she goes downstairs in order to use the summoning, but then smoke appears behind her, and from there we got the double T, baby. Cloak and Dagger, yes. Tandy and Tyrone officially appear, and Tyrone is like, what have you done? Yes, they're here finally. Oh, I'm so excited, boys. The next episode is absolutely my personal favorite episode, because you know I'm a sucker for crossovers, right? I love crossovers. Who doesn't love crossovers? However, the only problem I have is the fact that this is the last episode I'm recording of today, which I hate, but I'm so excited that they're finally here. And also, this crossover officially connects Runaways to the greater MCU. As you know, Luke Cage is officially part of the MCU, but in Luke Cage Season 2, there was a reference to Cloak and Dagger, and in Cloak and Dagger Season 1, there was a small reference to Luke Cage. However, that was not necessarily enough for some people, I guess. So then in Season 2, there's an actual picture of Mike Coulter's Luke Cage in a newspaper written by Karen Page. That connects it to Luke Cage, and with the crossover with Runaways, connects Runaways to the MCU as well. So it's all connected, boys. The only one with kind of loose threads connection-wise is absolutely Inhumans, which, like I said, you can cut that out, but at this point, it doesn't even matter anymore. Like, if they cut it out of the MCU, it truly does not matter. Like, if you look at it, they're gonna reboot, kind of softly reboot, this universe anyway with Secret Wars. So what's the point? You know, I don't really care anymore. But overall, I am so excited for the next episode, but I have to wait a day, sadly enough. But for you guys, we'll get into that now. Alright, it's a new day, and finally, here we are for the crossover, boys. Yes! This is what I've been waiting for all these episodes, because I, you know, love Cloak and Dagger. I think the show is actually very good. And also, this is Runaways' connection to the MCU. I think I said that also in the last little section. So let's get into it, shall we? So, Tandy and Tyrone are here because of the fact that Tyrone sends a disturbance in the Dark Force. And we get a little bit of a cat fight in a way between, like, Nico and Tandy. However, it's more vocally than any punching or anything like that. And then Tyrone tries to break it up. However, the rest of the squad is kind of captured. So Chase has an idea. He drops himself onto the floor and squeezes over to the back of Gert in order to untie her, which works. Problem is, then the witches appear. Also, Nico explains everything that needs to be explained to Tandy and Tyrone, and Tandy is kind of a little bit iffy on the help, but Tyrone is like, we have to help because, you know, why else are we in this crossover? So then Janet appears on the screen, which obviously freaks Tandy and Tyrone out, and she's like, hey, the squad's kind of captured. Maybe you should rescue them. So Tyrone teleports them over there in order to save everyone. So instantly Nico just undoes the spell that makes sure that Caroline can't use her powers, but then Caroline misses with her blast, so yeah, that wasn't really all that well. However, then Tyrone grabs all the parents and teleports them to the Hollywood sign for absolutely no reason at all, other than the fact that he could. Bit of a show off, I guess you could say. And then he comes back, and then he teleports all of the Runaways into the Dark Dimension, which is where Nico wanted to go. Problem is, she didn't really convey that information to the rest of the squad. Would have been nice, you know, to have the rest of the squad, you know, kind of come in for a vote. But we're here, so let's see what we're dealing with, because Tandy asks, what are your powers? Like, well, I have fist polygons that I don't have with me right now. And she can control a dinosaur who is not here right now. She's got magical powers that don't work when we're in here. So basically everyone's powerless. So that's fun. Gonna be a little bit of a problem. Also, before we leave the hostel, we're all gonna hold hands so that at least we're in pairs when we get split up. However, this time we don't get split up. Instead, we see a city on fire with some very noticeable CGI. Like, come on, dude. Like they didn't really even try. Also, we cut to Alex, who apparently has, I don't know, been sent to like he's in a prison, but then he gets pulled out and like what, be pulled into an arena or something like that. Also, his mom is there for some reason, and also Darius is there as well. But like, it seems like they want him to kill someone, and he's like, I'm not gonna kill anyone. So as the squad is exploring the city, a vehicle approaches, so everyone runs away. Also, Darius tells Alex about the fact that the Runaways are here. However, the Runaways are then saved by Quentin, who we thought was dead when we were at the hostel. And after a lot of convincing, he will eventually help us rescue Alex. At least get us into the prison in order to rescue Alex. So he tells us where to go. We go inside the building. However, then we hear him screaming, so I guess he gets killed. R.I.P. the boy. And then they're walking and talking, and also Tyrone and Chase are bonding, which is apparently Gert's nightmare. And it's like, you are such a sour person, aren't you? Jesus Christ. I don't like Gert. And I never have liked Gert. Like later on, Tyrone is like, let's go guys. And she makes a huge problem about that whole thing. I'm like, can you die? Please, okay? Can we just give that power to like, I don't know, Alex or something like that. The whole dinosaur controlling power. Because like, you can die if... I don't really care. However, as they're walking, Gert goes off the beaten path because of the fact that she hears Molly, and then Molly turns into a monster. So Tyrone teleports her and Chase away in order to save them. However, Alex is being held in Building A. They went in from the bottom of Building A. Problem is, Tyrone teleports them to Building B. So they need to figure out a way to get back to Building A. Even though, if I remember correctly, later on they rescue him in Building B. So I don't really get how that works. Also, Tandy throughout this episode has a little bit of an issue with Nico, and also it's like, well, why are we following her? It's like, well, technically our leader Alex is being held captive, so we need to follow someone else. However, Tandy then uses her powers on Nico in order to see her hopes, which is basically just the marriage to Carolina, and that does not make Nico happy at all. Like, she gets very upset about that, and it's kind of understandable, but I also understand Tandy's perspective, and also I like Cloak and Dagger more than Runaways, so I'm always going to be more on the side of Tandy and Tyrone than the Runaways. So then Tyrone, Chase, and Gert find Abel and the squad, and they gotta leave immediately because they don't want to get killed. So they get into a room in order to kind of like hopefully not be found, and then Tyrone uses his powers on Gert, which then he sees her problems, which is the fact that everyone is being killed except for her, at least Chase and Molly, and also Old Lace. So that causes her to make noise, which causes the bad guys to be like, yeah, they are. So then we go through a door, which is one of those classic comedy moments where they go into a room full of bad guys, like, oh, however, they can't leave. So now they have to fight. However, over on Building A, eventually, Tandy and the rest see outside the window that in the other building, we have Chase and Gert. Also, Tyrone was like, all right, grab my hand. And then two other, I don't know, zombies, soldiers, whatever you want to call them, grab Tyrone, so he teleports them away instead. But then Nico uses her staff in order to be able to, I don't know, super jump the team or make a bridge or something like that over to the other side. It actually looked kind of cool for TV budget, obviously. But they get into the building now, everyone is together, and now it's time to fight. However, then Tyrone pops in, so it's like, all right, great, the whole squad's together again. Problem is, then the door opens up and Quentin is dead. By the way, also, Darius is showing this to Alex through a computer monitor, so he sees everything that is happening, and yeah, he has a choice to make. He has to kill in order to save his friends. So then Darius gives him a blade. Quentin overpowers everyone as he does, and Alex then kills his quote-unquote mom, and that causes him to leave, the door to open, and now we can rescue Alex. Also, during the fight, right before Quentin actually disappeared, Tandy threw a dagger at Nico, who then turned it into like a dark dagger, I guess you could say, and then threw it at Quentin. But I think actually the reason that Quentin died was because of the fact that, you know, Alex killed his mom. It's quote-unquote mom. However, at the end of the episode, Tandy does say, hey, you remember that dagger? Keep that with you, okay? So that one's gonna be important to kill Luffy. So now we need an escape. Also, right before this, some people started to forget certain things, so it was already happening. But anyway, now we need to escape. Tyrone got his memories back, so now he is like, alright, I'll teleport us out. Everybody grab hands. But Tandy grabs Alex's hands, and what she sees is not good. Not good at all. You basically see Alex standing on top of a cliff with the goggles, the fistigons, the staff, but also one hand is glowing from Carolina's power. He basically has all of the Runaways' powers, which that could mean a bunch of different things, but that is not really a good thing necessarily. So then Tandy's like, wait, but then we teleport, and she's like, we need to send him back to the dark dimension because he is not a good person. However, the Runaways convince them not to do it, and then Tandy and Tyrone are like, well, we were only booked for one episode, so I think we're just gonna leave. Goodbye. And they teleport away. Also, before that, Tyrone met Old Lace, so that was nice. Nice little Tyrone interaction. And then to end the episode, the witches have Molly, and I very much enjoyed this episode. However, my problem is the fact they should have helped for the rest of this season, because the whole storyline of Runaways is Runaways versus Pride. This kind of falls outside, which means that they could have teamed up with Cloak and Dagger in order to defeat Morgan Le Fay. Would have been cool, but I guess they only got them for a singular episode, sadly enough. However, also Tandy's like, next time you guys help us, and I'm like, there is not gonna be a next time. Don't even put that thought into anyone's head, because there's just not gonna be a next time. But anyway, the witches have Molly, so that is probably what the whole plot is of the next episode. Alright, before we get into this episode, I would actually like to say something before we get into it. I wanted to say it actually at the beginning of the last episode, but because of the crossover, I forgot about that. Anyway, the actor who portrayed Jonah in the series Runaways 3 days ago, sadly enough, passed away from cancer, and I just wanted to make a mention of that. R.I.P. the boy. He also portrayed Doctor Doom in the Fantastic Four movies, which actually is what people know him for more, even though for me it's like, no, why did no one in the comments mention Runaways? Come on, dude. He did a really good job as Jonah in the first 2 seasons of Runaways. So it is sad. R.I.P. the boy. So let's get into this episode. So Molly's missing, and don't worry about it. She calls and says that she's okay, but she's under control of the witches. So yeah, it wasn't really her. Also, Jeffrey wakes up and he's back to normal because of the fact that after the blast in the last episode, the skull on the thing cracked just like what Tina did to Robert. And then he tries to escape. However, he sees a bunch of witches. He hides and he overhears them talking, and also sees that Molly is in trouble. So he goes outside, contacts Tamar, and is like, I need to save Molly. And he brings Pride back together again to save Molly. Also, Chase will join Gert in college. Nice to know, but I think we gotta put a little pin in those plans. Also, apparently Morgan wants to do something high up, because that is the place where she can get like perfect magic. Also, every time I see Morgan, I get very thirsty. I really need to drink something. That is a joke that I've been waiting to say for the whole of Morgan's appearances in this show. I keep forgetting. This time I didn't though. So Pride goes on their mission to save Molly, and what do? They have some kind of like a gas leak or something like that they pretend to get into the building. So they get in, everybody gets into position. I mean, the Yorks are still in the lobby, but the rest of them get into position. However, according to Tina, we have to wait for the perfect moment with the spell, but that kind of gets thrown away when Jeff hears that Molly's been struck by lightning, so he instantly goes over there to rescue her. He picks her up, takes her with him, and then before we can escape, Molly's being controlled still, so she pushes Jeff away into some metal, which apparently pierces him, which we learn later on, and he'll be in a bed rest for the rest of this episode. But then Tina instantly frees Molly, and now we leave. However, the witches did get what they wanted out of Molly thanks to that lightning strike, I guess. And Pride and Molly arrive back at the hostel where the Runaways learn the truth about Molly and the fact that she was possessed. So now we need a plan in order to fight the baddies, and it's a very simple plan. Victor, Chase, and Alex are apparently gonna go and hack the phones in order to make them weaker so that Morgan's power will be depleted. And also later on, Dale figures out that Carolina's blood, because in the last episode there was like these sounds that Carolina could not hear but the rest could hear. So Carolina's blood might be a way to protect everyone from the phones, and it turns out to be true. So Dale takes some of her blood in order to use a centrifuge in order to be able to make sure that everyone can get an injection so that they can all be protected, at least from the spell. Also, really the only ones who are gonna do the hacking are Victor and Janet, so we get some nice moments with them. And also Tina has the plan of sending Morgan back from whence she came. Understandable, you know. If she can't be killed, at at least send her away. That might be a better idea. However, Morgan still wants the Staff of One, so she is eventually gonna come to the Runaway residence. And also, we see that armies are trying to pull their way through the mirror. So, yeah, we don't have a lot of time left. So then Chase finds a box, opens it up, and he finds a phone inside, and he gets possessed. However, Molly then holds him down while Gert injects him, so he gets saved immediately. But I don't know, I guess we needed some kind of like action sequence in a way in order to alleviate boredom. Jessica Jones Season 2 could have learned a little bit from that, even though this one was useless, so I don't know if they could have learned that much from this. So then Morgan arrives, and Nico throws the dagger that doesn't work at all. So it's like, what, really? What was the crossover for? It just doesn't work anymore? Okay. This is just bad. However, then the rest of the Runaways bow to Morgan after she does her whole speech. Still thirsty. And turns out that that was actually a fake out, and it was only used to stall time so that Victor and Janet could hack the phones and deplete her of her power. At least get her down enough so that we can beat her. So then Morgan tries to control Nico, but that doesn't really work because of the fact that Carolina protects her. And they have a bit of a blasting battle like the Kamehameha, but way less cool. However, we have a couple of witches that have arrived, so Chase goes upstairs and blasts one, but he only has one of the Fistigons, so sadly enough, he can't blast the other. Also, in this episode, we learned that Alex still has the knife that was given to him by the Dark Dimension Darius, or as you could call him, the Triple D. And he uses that in order to kill the other witch that actually blasts Chase. But then the other witch finds the parents, and that's when Alex kills her in order to save the parents. So then Gert has a little idea. She goes back to Tina, she grabs a bunch of salt, bit of a salty one, and then she once again goes on her feminism garbage, feminazi garbage, you know how it goes. And then she makes a circle of salt around her, and that allows her to be trapped, so then Tina sends her away. However, before that, Molly and Gert were blasted away, so Gert, sadly enough, has big wounds, actually. And also we see Old Lace banging on the door because she could not be here, because there's a potential that Old Lace and Gert do not have the connection that they used to have anymore because of the whole protection DNA from Carolina. So then she falls down because of the fact that she's been wounded, and she dies. And to be honest, she is my least favorite of the Runaways, so I am more sad for the rest of them than about her actual death. I will say that. Like, every time she opens her... I feel like the team actually has improved now that she's gone. The problem is, the show doesn't think so, because we still have one more episode to go. But yeah, she dies, and then Old Lace screams in pain, and, well, what are we gonna do for the next episode? Who's ready for some time travel, boys? Here we are, boys. It is finally time for the final finale of Runaways. Yes, we made it to its ending! Oh my god, it took so long, but we're here at the end. This is the last episode of Runaways, so let's get into it. And apparently 10 years have passed since the last time we saw the Runaways and Gert's death, yay. And apparently Chase is making a time machine because he wants to save Gert. However, then we jump a couple of years back into the past, but still in the future. I know officially I think it's actually supposed to be 2021, but I'm just gonna call this like 2024 just for my own headcanon, okay? Just a wee little headcanon. Anyway, Carolina has a new girlfriend because of the fact that Nico left. Molly is part of a dance club and also lives at the hostel with Chase and Lace. And also Chase has barricaded himself at the hostel. So this version of Chase is never going to be a part of the episode anymore. That is basically all he gets. Alex is running the Wilder company together with his dad, so that is nice. And also on the side, he is helping Chase with the creation of the time machine. And Nico has returned after her long journey and gets a knock on the door and gets almost killed by Alex. However, she then blocks the bullet, and then future Chase from the 2028 timeline saves her by pushing Alex away. And apparently we learned that future Alex is here because of the fact that someone in I don't know, maybe like a couple of months, a couple of years, will plant a bomb that almost killed him but did not kill him, in the same way that the Hernandezes were killed. And he wants revenge because he thinks one of the Runaways were the ones who did it. However, this timeline's version of Alex, he's like, I can't believe I will turn evil and all that stuff. He can't believe that stuff. But then he goes like, I'm gonna trap this Alex to like a Star Wars convention or something like that so that he will not become evil. However, future Alex also knows their loved ones, so they might go after that. And it turns out future Alex is gone after Carolina's new girlfriend. So the gang head over there and they trap future Alex. However, he's able to escape and goes back to like season 1, episode 1, or before that, actually. It's either season 1, episode 1, or like before the first episode. Also, just a little thing here. What is it with the MCU and doing time travel stuff during this time? Because we have time travel stuff with Runaways, then we have time travel stuff with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. season 5, and then we also have time travel stuff with Endgame. It's like, dude, there's too much time travel stuff. Is this a time travel phase or something like that? To be honest, there is more time travel stuff in this phase than there is multiverse stuff in the entirety of the multiverse saga. So then the squad arrives back into either episode 1 or before that, and they now have to protect their past selves from future Alex. However, future Chase kinda does a little bit of a wrong thing, and he decides to interact with Gert, and that is not a good idea, but he does interact with her. However, Nico and Alex, they see future Alex, so they chase him, and as they are chasing him, they run past future Chase, and then he joins in on the chase, and he eventually gets to a place where Alex normally was supposed to be. However, they try to take him with them, but then past Alex shows up, so then Nico uses a mind wiping spell because she's been training in the mountains with her magic, so she's now way more powerful. But they then take future Alex to the baseball court in order to be able to have some privacy because of the fact that no one is there. So we have a little bit of a talk about what the future actually looks like and who potentially actually the villains are, but none of that matters. Also, I guess 2023, 2024 in my continuity anyway, 2024 Alex gets sent to back to his timeline because of the fact that 2 Alexes is a little bit of a problem. And then future Chase wants to go back in time to save Gert. I don't like that because look, killing someone off does add stakes to something, and it's the least favorite character, so I don't necessarily need her to come back. However, then the rest of the team also wants to save her, and then they take future Alex with them as well because for reasons, you know, some mischievous stuff and also an ending scene. So then it comes the time for who will take eventually Gert's place and be the one who will be killed by Morgan. So then Nico goes off after a little bit in order to talk to herself, and then she disappears into herself or whatever just happened. I have no idea what happened there. And basically all the stuff plays out the exact same way, except for the fact that future Alex is being a little bit mischievous somewhere, and then he walks away. And then future Chase knocks the current Chase, I guess, out and grabs his fistigons in order to take his place so that he can, in a sense, potentially sacrifice himself. To be honest, any of them can sacrifice themselves, and I could not care less because they're still alive anyway. So future Chase has officially decided to take Gert's place. However, she once again becomes feminazi about that stuff. It's like, just let him save you. He's like, you're gonna die and I'll save you. She's like, I don't need saving. She's like, okay, then die. Like, that's such a stupid thing. Why is it always like that? It's like the man tries to save the woman from dying and she objects. How stupid are you? Why do you need to object? He is saving your life. If you go on with what you're doing, you are going to die. Why are you dumb? But then he grabs a bunch of that salt stuff. However, he has apparently a dispenser at his feet. So he starts to taunt Morgan and just tries to make a circle around her. However, Morgan can't attack him because of the fact that there's a spell being held to protect future Chase. However, that is what Alex says. Like, oh, she's up there. It's like, oh, okay, great, future Alex. Why are you even here? Ruining everything. But eventually, Morgan is able to kill future Chase, but not before he finishes the weird looking circle. That must have been the circle from Thor Ragnarok. It's a weird sucker circle. But future Chase dies and everyone is like, no, Chase. But then Chase comes downstairs, so it's like, yay, Chase. And that's it. That is the end. Everything has now been saved. Gert is sadly enough alive. And to end the episode off, Alex is like, oh wait, before we go out to eat, I gotta grab my wallet. So he runs back to grab his wallet. However, there's also a note there, and it basically states infiltrate Wilder's company, and also something about someone else, which is apparently an Easter egg to like the Runaway comics, and then to end it off, kill Nico. But he's like, that's weird, and then he just like puts it away. It's like, nah, whatever. And then he joins his friends, and they're gonna go and grab some food, and that's the end of the show. And overall, yeah, I enjoyed it. You know, I like this show, even though I don't think it is like perfection achieved. You know, this show has had a lot of problems, but for me, it's mainly the way that the seasons have been structured. And also, why did we need this type of episode? It is very confusing confusing where it's like, oh, we're just gonna have a time travel episode. And if anyone is going to say stuff like, oh, but that ruins the MCU because of the fact that it's different timeline rules than in the other one, it's not necessarily different timeline rules compared to Endgame, because if you actually watch Avengers Endgame, they're not really allowed to really misplace certain things in the past without changing the future. So it kind of still applies with the rules. It doesn't do something drastic like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Season 5 where I need to headcanon it away, which I have already thought of. But we'll get there eventually. Just a couple more weeks, maybe even a month, maybe even 2. I don't know. I don't think it's gonna be more than 2 months, but I think maybe March we'll be taking a look at that one. Maybe. Just maybe. I don't know. Like I said, I have no idea how this uploads. Right now, this is planning to upload on the last Thursday of January of 2026. I don't even know if that's gonna happen, because also I don't know how Wonder Man is gonna upload. Because my hope is that after this is done, Wonder Man goes up, and then we'll get into the Man of the Year. But like, I found it weird that we got like a future episode. Now, I've also seen people say that this season is convoluted and confusing, and I'm like, I didn't really find it confusing. I found it simple enough to follow. I will say this is probably my favorite season because of the whole crossover. Yes, also that. But also, I don't know, it's just, I liked Morgan, and when she disappeared, so did my milk, and I hate it. But anyway, overall, I enjoyed the season the most. I will say that. But the structure just feels really weird. Like I said before, and I'll say it again, you know, episode 7 of season 2 should have been the finale of season 1, and then episode 4 of this season should have been the finale of season 2. Would have been better, and that way we could have actually spent more time on this season storyline, add the 4 extra episodes to this storyline. Would have been better, you know. I would have liked to see that a lot more, but we didn't get that, sadly enough. This is a series, however, that you do have to watch in one go. Like, don't watch anything in between. Nothing from the MCU takes place in between these seasons. It is Runaways season 1 until 3, and then we'll move on to the next thing, which is Man of the Year, obviously. But like I said, I still enjoyed this season. I've seen a lot of mixed reception to the season, and also that explains why it's very much forgotten about by the people on the internet. But this season still was a lot of fun. There was just fun to be had, and I know, like, people are gonna potentially complain about, like, CGI and stuff like that because it's TV budget. I've seen that as well online, and I don't necessarily have that complaint, because for me, the CGI, the goodness doesn't necessarily matter on TV budget. Like, for me, that matters more in movie, you know, as long as, like, for me, I'm good with fine. And also, I spent decades watching the CW Arrowverse, so for me, the CGI in that one is not necessarily that good, but I'm still like, I don't necessarily really care all that much because it's TV budget. Like, what are you gonna expect? You're not gonna have 250 million CGI budget on like an episode of a TV show. You just can't do that, so understand that. But still, I enjoyed the final episode, even though it did go into the time travel stuff, which makes it a little bit weird. And I know I am using my own headcanon in order to make sense of this series. I mean, you can also follow just the MCU timeline in that sense, where basically this season ends right before Infinity War. Even though technically, if you even follow that one, this season still ends right after Infinity War. Because apparently, according to the MCU timeline, oh no, actually, according to the MCU wiki, it takes place right before the end of, like right before Infinity War begins. So that's fun. Also, I got a little bit of a spoiler about the next season for Jessica Jones, about the fact that potentially Luke Cage is going to be in it. So that one I actually completely forgot about, that Luke Cage might appear in that season. So that I don't like that I know that now. But anyway, that is basically it. If you want to follow that timeline, that can work too. Then basically, I guess the timeline would change a little bit, and it's Cloak and Dagger season 2, and then Runaway season 1, 2, and 3, and then Thor Ragnarok, and then going into Man of the Year, Jessica Jones, and all that stuff. So you can follow that timeline as well. I just like to stick to the old timeline, but I don't know, maybe I'll change it, who knows. But I'm probably not gonna upload this. I don't know, I learned about this too late, and I've already said things that are gonna be next, so I don't know what to do now. I'm a little bit of a sticky situation. But overall, like I said, I enjoyed the season, so I'm just gonna end it here so that I can get into the editing of this, and hopefully this day also do Man of the Year, obviously. So let me know what you guys thought about Runaway season 3 or the whole series in the comment section down below. With that being said, thank you all so very much for watching, and I hope you guys have enjoyed. And if you did, please like button, subscribe if you haven't done so already, turn on notifications, don't forget to check out the Let's Play channel, link in the description and at the end of the video. And like I said, I might change things up because of what happens, but I don't really know if I will change stuff up. And I mean release date wise, where it's basically like Thor Ragnarok comes out after Runaways instead of before Runaways. This is also where you're gonna get that information, you know, like where I might actually switch stuff up. And that also means that Runaways does not start 2018, and technically Punisher would start 2018. It's confusing. using, whatever. Anyway, like I said before, next time, what I will, well, it may be Thor, but what I am going to be watching next time is going to be Man of the Year, because the fact that, you know, Punisher needs to happen, and it's the year of Punisher, boys. It is. Actually, tomorrow I'm going to wear my Punisher shirt, sadly enough, but that's also when I do a majority of the Punisher season anyway. But yeah, tomorrow is the day for Punisher because it's his year, because he's going to be appearing in Spider-Man Brand New Day. Obviously, Daredevil Born Again Season 2, but he's going to get his own special as well. Very excited about all that. So yeah, I can't wait to get into Punisher Season 2, but like I said, maybe you'll get to see Thor Ragnarok actually next week, and then after that, we'll head straight into Punisher Season 2, unless there are obviously changes. Bye!